Hi, welcome. I'm Dr. KJ Foster. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 10 ways in which you can disengage from negative rumination. And I say negative rumination as opposed to just rumination in general because we as human beings are more likely to engage in negative rumination, which is the problematic rumination, rather than positive rumination. I'm going to talk about positive rumination a little bit at the end in terms of ways in which we can start to counterbalance, counteract this negative rumination. But let's talk about why. Why is it that we as humans commonly, right? This is a very common struggle. Some people struggle more than others, but it's very common that people in general struggle with negative mental rumination. And why is that? That's because our brains are designed for survival. So it's a part of our built-in threat response system. So our brains are designed to identify any threats to our environment. The problem is that often our threat response system will be triggered when there's no real threat in our environment. So it's often triggered by a false alarm. I think that you can probably relate to this because the truth is everyone struggles with mental rumination from time to time. The problem is when we get stuck in that mental rumination and it becomes so pervasive that we then are experiencing really high levels of anxiety, depression, potentially despair as we struggle to disengage from that mental rumination loop. So if you know anything about cognitive behavioral therapy and the way that our thoughts interact with how we feel and our actions, it's all linked, then you know that our thinking is definitely connected to that feeling and that experience of anxiety. So the problem occurs when we're trying to solve that problem, or we're giving that thought a lot of attention, and then that anxiety continues to grow. So I'm going to give you some strategies on how you can disengage from that mental rumination so then you can experience that anxiety starting to come down as your body starts to relax and recognize that there's no threat. There's no real threat to your environment. First, I'd like to say welcome if you're new to my channel. Again, I am Dr. KJ Foster, and I've been working in the field of mental health for about 13 years now. I specialize in treating substance use disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, and other anxiety disorders, depression, trauma. On this channel, you're going to find hundreds of videos that address a variety of different mental health issues. I'm also certified in mindfulness meditation, so I also create meditations, and so hopefully you will find something on the channel that will help you to become the best version of you possible. Now let's get into those strategies on how to disengage from negative mental rumination. Strategy number 1, and these strategies are not in any particular order. Strategy number 1 is to try a grounding technique. The purpose of a grounding technique is to bring your attention back to the present moment. Because when we are in mental rumination, we are generally thinking about the past or the future. We're not in the present moment. So there's a great grounding technique called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And that's where you identify 5 things in your environment, on the wall or around the room, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste in your mouth. So it's just a way of bringing your attention back into the present moment. And remember that when we're ruminating, we are giving our attention to that thought or those thoughts. And so this is a way of distracting your attention away from that and bringing that into the present moment. Strategy number 2 is to challenge the thought by using an approach called cognitive restructuring, or what's called reframing. It's just another word for reframing the thought. So this is where you challenge the validity of the thought. and the underlying belief system that's feeding that thought. Because certainly all the thoughts that our brain generates, we have between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Our brain is always generating thoughts. In fact, that is the primary function of our brain, is to generate thoughts. So not every thought that our brain generates is going to be a valid, true, or even a real thought, right? Real meaning valid, right? It's not really valid. For example, if I run into someone in the grocery store and a friend of mine, and they walk right by me and they don't acknowledge me and they don't say hello, my brain may generate the thought, oh, that person must be mad at me. They didn't acknowledge me. I waved to them. They didn't wave back. That's a true thought that I'm having, but it may not be based in something that is truly valid, because it could be that that person was just distracted and they didn't see me. There could be all kinds of explanations as to why that person walked right by me and they didn't say hello. So not all of our thoughts are valid or even true. You can also challenge the thought by asking yourself, how productive is this thought right now? And what's something more productive that I can focus my attention on? I use this one a lot and it works really well for me. Strategy number 3 is called cognitive diffusion. And it's a way of taking the thought out and looking at it and examining it for what it truly is, which is just a thought. So a way to do this is to put a sentence stem in front of the thought and say, I'm having the thought that, so that it helps the brain to register that this is just a thought and it's not something that is actually happening in this moment. Strategy number 4. Strategy number 4 is to set a worry timer and allow yourself time to worry. Give yourself 10 minutes. Set your timer and just sit there and welcome in the worry. Bring it on. Go ahead and worry to your heart's content for that 10 minutes. But once the alarm goes off, then that is your signal to disengage from that worrying, to disengage from that mental rumination and focus your attention on another activity that will be like a healthy distraction for you. So whether that's going for a walk or calling a friend or doing something that's going to help you to naturally disengage from that worrying, that mental rumination. Strategy number 5 is something that I call a mind dump or a stream of consciousness. And this is where you allow yourself 2 minutes. You could even set a timer for yourself with this one. And what you do is you take a journal or a piece of paper and you write down everything that comes to your mind, every thought that you have without filtering for a solid 2 minutes. You could even do it for 5 minutes if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more. And then what you do is you read it and you look for themes of what is going on and what comes out from that stream of consciousness. This is a great way to identify the things that are contributing to your rumination. Strategy number 6, I already mentioned actually as a part of the setting the timer strategy, which is to then disengage by using a form of healthy distraction. So strategy number 6 is using a healthy distraction to help to disengage from that mental rumination. So when you do something like take a walk or another form of exercise or engage in a hobby or call a friend and focus on what's going on in their life, it helps then for that rumination, those thoughts that are sticking, that are kind of stuck in your mindset, it helps them to naturally disengage and float away when you're distracting yourself on something else. And I say a healthy distraction because it should be something that is not going to be feeding that mental rumination. So for example, Googling, if you're ruminating about whether a family member is sick or whether you're getting sick, I know we all do this to some degree where we become Google doctors and we start examining symptoms and what's going on. But when you're doing that and it's creating more distress, that's an unhealthy distraction. That would be called a compulsion. And a compulsion, unfortunately, is something that actually feeds the rumination. It may provide you with temporary relief from the anxiety, but ultimately it's only serving to strengthen the obsession and the mental rumination to start all over again. Strategy number 7 is identifying your triggers. And this could be through an anxiety journal, keeping a journal, where what you're doing essentially is you are accumulating data. You are recording the when, where, why, how. So you're identifying the situations, the people, the time of day, the day of the week, those situations where you are more likely to succumb to mental rumination. So this is helpful in not necessarily like avoiding. Certainly there will be certain people and situations that might be unhealthy and contributing negatively to your mindset. So you may want to avoid those situations, but you have to be very careful because avoidance could create more of an issue. It's going to be better for you to be able to develop coping strategies for these situations that you may not be able to avoid and be able to show up in a way where you're stronger and better able to deal with that mental rumination as it comes in and tries to grab a hold of you. So recording your triggers, getting ahead of the anxiety is a great strategy for learning how to ultimately disengage from the mental rumination. Number 8 is to practice recognizing what is in your control and what is not in your control, because often we'll ruminate about things that are absolutely and completely out of our control. But once we shift and start to focus on the things that are in our control, then we can regain our power, and that's going to help to disengage from that negative mental rumination. Strategy number 9 is to practice 2 to 5 minutes of mindfulness each day, because mindfulness is going to help you to stay in the present moment, and it's going to help to strengthen your mindset so that you will have the ability, more of an ability, that when you're mentally ruminating and you're out here somewhere, to be able to bring back your focus to the present moment. So 2 to 5 minutes every day. The consistency is much more important, in my opinion, than the length of time of the meditation. Just 2 to 5 minutes daily of mindfulness is going to help you to strengthen your mindset and be able to bring yourself back into the present moment more quickly when you've succumbed to the mental rumination. Finally, strategy number 10, I did purposefully leave this one for last, and that is to practice positive rumination. When is the last time you ruminated over something positive, over something that went well in your life or is going well in your life, or an event that you experienced that was enjoyable, or an experience where you felt joy and happiness? When's the last time you ruminated about something positive? It's generally not something our brains are designed to do, because again, our brains are designed for survival. So they are already, we come into the world already negatively biased. So it's our responsibility to reprogram that mindset and counteract that. And the more that we do that, the more that we actively and purposefully engage in positive rumination, then that is going to help counterbalance the negative rumination, because then it's going to be more accessible in our mindset. The more that we focus on something, we focus on the positive. That's why gratitude lists are so powerful. But beyond even that, beyond writing down the things that we're grateful for, really spending a couple of minutes to think about in your mind over and over again something really positive that happened in your life recently, or something you really enjoyed today. An exercise that I give a lot of my clients, which is like a gratitude list, but it contains a lot of other elements that help to recondition the mindset, is where you write down 3 things that you're grateful for. You write down 2 things that went well today in your day or that you enjoyed, and then writing down something that you appreciate about someone that you love, and then writing down either a strength that you have or something you did today that is helping your life to move forward. So that just adds several different elements to help to recondition the mindset toward these positive things that are happening in your life, rather than focusing your attention on the negative. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did and you know anyone who may benefit from this information, please share. And if you would like to see more of my videos, then be sure to click the subscribe button and also the bell, because by clicking the bell, you will be notified every time I upload a new video or a new meditation. Thanks for joining me today. Be well.